All right, we are live. I'm going to wait a minute or two, as always, for people to join the session. I see people starting to come in. Welcome to today's MEC session. As always, we're going to have another very insightful one that I'm sure you guys learned something new. If you're just tuning in now, let us know where you're tuning in from. Are you on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope? Let us know. I see more people coming in. Feel free to comment, let me know where you guys are tuning in from. I see Rizzy A Beats is here. Arnie is Art. As always, appreciate you joining. We'll get started in about 30 to 60 seconds. Today, we're going to be talking about Reddit. I plan to learn a lot from this session. I've seen a lot about Reddit, especially recently with all the Robinhood stuff. But Reddit's been around for a minute, but I personally haven't used Reddit for pretty much anything really, but definitely not to promote music. But I think there's an opportunity there. There's a community there. So wherever there's a community of music fans, then there's probably an opportunity. But you got to do it the right way. I see more people coming in. Cloud9, what up? Legendary the Poet, what's going on? Jordan Blake on Facebook, appreciate you tuning in. Looks like we got a decent amount of people already. So today's guest is Matty Monroe. He's one of the moderators of the biggest independent music community on Reddit. Is that correct?
One of the biggest, yeah, definitely the biggest subreddit specifically for indie music, and we're pretty close to one of the bigger music subreddits out there.
Nice. And how many people? And when we're talking big, how many people are we talking about?
I think right now we're around 1.8 million subscribers, and usually hovering anywhere around from like 300,000 to 400,000 unique users a month.
Sheesh. So these are people that join the group. They're fans of independent music. Are they artists? Are they all the above? Like, who's the primary person that would join this Reddit group?
I mean, yeah, I would say it's all of the above, but primarily it's for fans, and usually we sort of tailor the subreddit for fans first and foremost, as just a way to discuss, because I think the subreddit was started in 2013 as like an offshoot of like the hip hop head subreddit, where it's just like, because that community was so special and so unique and was so focused on new music, and it really felt like indie music needed that also. And so the founder of the subreddit, Jack, made the subreddit on like Christmas Eve 2013, and here we are, some odd years later.
Got it. So how did the Reddit group grow so big? And then what is your role in it? Like, what do you do something on a daily basis, weekly basis? Like, how do you contribute to the community?
Yeah. So the way that we grew initially, so obviously like Hip Hop Heads was a pretty big subreddit, so early promotion was on there, and like any other subreddits that were sort of around that were like, hey, like if you're in this subreddit, you'll probably like this one a little bit more because it's more active and like much more heavily moderated. And then and also we started doing, I think in 2015 we started doing Ask Me Anything sessions, which is like sort of like Q&As with artists, as our founder was starting to book some more. And basically, as more and more artists were coming to do AMAs, our our subscriber count went up, more users started logging on, and that's just kind of how it's been since then. Just like more discussion online and doing a ton of AMAs with like a bunch of artists, either smaller ones or like we've had bigger ones, like Glass Animals did an AMA last year. We've had Julian Casablancas with the Strokes on for an AMA at one point. So it's just been just growing from there. And also we've gotten promotion from Reddit itself. I think like they've been really, really supportive of the subreddit and like getting us AMAs and just generally like, because I think like whenever you sign up for Reddit and you say like, oh, one of my interests is music, because they'll have those little surveys. Usually one of the first places it'll subscribe you to is IndieHeads, because it's like, hey, like if you like music, you're gonna like our subreddit.
Right. Dope. And for those that may not be familiar, the AMA is Ask Me Anything, right? It's just got an
Yes.
interview with artists. How do you go about selecting the artists for the AMAs?
So yeah, I took over the AMA stuff around 2017, and generally our process has always been the fans on the subreddit decide who gets an AMA. Like not directly, mind, but like if we see like, okay, this artist is getting a ton of upvotes and like some buzz in the comments, like people are really enjoying the record, we'll reach out to their publicity or their management or their label and be like, hey, we want to have this artist on for an AMA. and it kind of goes from there. And then like last year with the pandemic, we sort of increased our AMA efforts where we were sort of like expanding our outreach a little bit, going to artists that maybe we wouldn't, usually have on for an AMA. But it kind of comes with like both like growth of the subreddit, more eyes on us, more, publicity, people are paying attention to us, and it's just grown from there. Just ton it's just like crazy things. I think last year we had, I want to say, a I think over 200 AMAs last year, or
Oh
somewhere
wow.
really really close to 200. So like we saw some like really exponential growth during the pandemic that we've had to like kind of like take back a little bit, because like I work full time. Sarah, who also helps in AMA, she also works full time. As like we're all, basically everyone on the moderation team is like balancing like either like school or like part time work or full time work. So it's just like it's a group effort to like keep the subreddit going.
Right. Nah, I understand. The MEC is very similar in that way. This is definitely not my full-time job. So I understand, when you're passionate about something and it's positive, it's a positive community, you want to keep it going.
Hmm.
So definitely appreciate your efforts in doing that. So the number one question the people who are watching are going to say, "Hey, how can I promote my music on Reddit?" And it's definitely not, it doesn't seem like a situation where you just want a bunch of people in there like posting their links, like just start spamming a bunch of links.
Yeah.
What would you say is if you felt like your music would be enjoyed by people in this community, what should the proper approach be, or a respectful approach be to your Reddit community or just Reddit in general?
Hmm. So our rules in the subreddit for submitting like original music usually is you got to be a semi-regular contributor to the subreddit first. And that just
Mm,
means, like I said, as I said early on, it's a subreddit for fans first and foremost. And so if you're only coming to our subreddit to just do self-promotion, that's it. We're not going to welcome you there. We're going to usually remove your post. And if you keep spamming, we're going to ban you, because like no one really likes a self-promotional spammer. You want someone that's like actively a part of the community, because our rules reflect how most people discover music. It's just like, we think about, the alternative music communities of like the 80s and 90s of like a bunch of artists like uplifting each other, like
mm,
I think to Nirvana, and I think like of all the bands that got signed in the wake of Nirvana, because these were just independent artists that Kurt Cobain liked and supported and sort of uplifted them. And our rules reflect that of like, you know, you gotta, talk, if you're a fan of indie music, it shouldn't be too difficult to find conversations to have. It's just like, hey, I'm listening to, for example, I've been listening to the new Spirit of the Beehive album. So it's like, hey, if I want to post my own music, but like, I want to ingrain myself in the community, I start talking with the community and I start getting along with them and having conversations and sort of building up this trust where it's like whenever I do put out my music and I want to post it, hey, there's gonna be people like, oh hey, I recognize that user. Let me check out their music. As recently, someone who gained a big fan base on the community, they posted their own album. It got like 300, 400 upvotes, which is a lot for, which may not seem like a lot if you're looking at like Twitter and whatnot, but like 300, 400 for us, even despite our subscriber size, we still sort of have like a mindset of a very small community and small subreddit. So seeing that amount of support for someone who is, relatively unknown in the grand scheme is pretty cool. And, we want our rules to reflect that of like, hey, like if you want to be a part of this community, it's really easy to get yourself in there. As it's all about trust. It's all about trust, and it's all about uplifting each other and, you know, sort of ingraining yourself.
yeah. I think this is just great to hear again, because we say it as well, like in our MEC Facebook group. Like, if don't come in and just start spamming and start asking to take from the community when you never really give anything to the community. You're not really authentic to the community. Like, people can tell if you're just there to promote yourself and be self-serving. And
Mm-hmm.
we've seen that most recently with the NFT community, like with NFTs, like in crypto. That seems to be a community where I've seen even some bigger artists that have dropped NFTs and haven't really learned about the space, learned about the community, and just looked at it as a cash grab. It hasn't worked for some even bigger artists because they don't know how to ingratiate themselves into the community authentically. Would you think that's a good comparison, or is it a little bit
Uh,
different?
I mean, I'd say so. I definitely can see the parallels there of like, because there's some people that just come on the subreddit that just try to promote themselves and they don't want to. Like I say, it's all about taking and not giving back. And so we're, at least as I've taken over the subreddit, like that's been a big philosophy of just like, hey, if you see people that are just doing this, like just feel free to remove their posts. And like if they keep spamming stuff, or if it's clear that they're not going to play along with our rules, don't let them back in the community. Just like keep them out, keep them out, because they have no intentions of following our rules and being like an actual community member. Then it's like, okay, well, go find, there's a bunch of other subreddits you can go to where they're maybe a little less strict on self promotion, or maybe there's even subreddits that are a better fit. Because I would say for indie heads, sometimes we're not even the best fit for some people's music. Like if you're making hip hop, the hip hop head subreddit is a really great subreddit. Like there's a really supportive community on there. So if you're making like more like mainstream style hip hop, I would say that's a great place to go to, because I've seen a bunch of artists blow up because they posted their stuff on hip hop heads. So, and same goes for any subreddit really. It's just like I've seen a ton of bands, have start to gain some buzz somewhere, and then as soon as it gets posted on Reddit, boom, they blow up and become a huge thing. And it's all really about like having. I would say the most important thing with Reddit, it's not really more about self promotion. It's just sort of having the fans in the right places, because there's artists, that I get sent stuff by publicity people, and occasionally, I have a full time job, so I don't always have a chance to check everything in my inbox. But sometimes if a promoter is like giving me something like really like a personal pitch, I'll check it out, and if I really like it, I'm gonna promote the hell out of it on the subreddit, because I know that I have some levels of clout on there. And so if someone's like, oh hey, like Matty is listening to this record, hey, maybe I should check this out, if they're really liking it and promoting it.
So for your specific indie heads subreddit, because some people hear indie heads, they just think independent music. Like independent music can be any genre, but it's not. Like specifically, what type of music makes the most sense for your community?
Yeah, so of course, like indie was sort of coined in the 90s as sort of this kind of catch-all term for this sort of alternative rock that was popping up in the wake of, I mean, not exactly Nirvana, because it's had history in a bunch of places. So you talk about the 70s, you talk about the early, punk scene in the 70s, you think about, the post-punk scene that formed right after that. You think about sort of the early new wave music. You think about the early alternative rock and grunge music that popped up, or, just college rock in the late 80s, like REM and whatnot. Or nowadays, where I think like one of the great things about how the indie genre has evolved is that it isn't just, usually when people think about indie, sometimes they just think, oh, just like indie rock, they just think rock music, but it's so much bigger than that these days. As, I think the best way to describe it is sort of just like independently focused music, where it's just like, this is music that would not really get any play in the mainstream, or, wouldn't really get mainstream attention, or just would have a hard time being pushed to a more mainstream audience. So, I think of hip hop, we allow artists like Mike and Navy Blue and Earl Sweatshirt, because, these are artists that are making very independently, minded music. They're not making music for mainstream audiences. They're making stuff that is challenging to a mainstream audience, that has roots in very independent music. And, also R&B, we all like Blood Orange is a big one. Blood Orange and Frank Ocean. And Frank Ocean is someone that like, someone that did come up in like a major label system, but completely broke away from that, started his own label, and has created music completely on his own terms, where it's more or less the music industry catching up with what Frank Ocean is doing, rather than the other way around. And so generally, like, for the most part, most music that gets posted on our subreddit, it's usually, like rock music, but we do allow plenty of other stuff to get posted. And I think like hip hop, we've opened up our rules on that in the past couple of years since I joined on. And I even then, I still feel like people aren't taking advantage of it, because I think there is like a really strong community of hip hop fans within the subreddit that really do want to help, focus on new artists that really wouldn't get mainstream attention otherwise. Like I think of, Billy Woods, I think of the recent Madlib album that just came out, or like Arm & Hammer and all these other artists that are making like really like forward thinking music that isn't really getting talked about in a lot of places. And, when you talk about indie music, you also have to like really talk about, sort of the racial context also of that. Like it very much was a very like, I'll be the first to tell you, we have a lot of white people on our subreddit. It's, a lot of the people that get publication and get posted on our subreddit are white. If you look at our census results, it's usually a lot of white people. And, it's something that you just have to acknowledge, and you have to just work on and try to be more open. I think we've done that because, for one, like, we are very, like, we're not afraid to ban people if they're being racist, if they're being sexist, if they're being transphobic. Like, we're not afraid. We are a very welcoming, open community. And if you're gonna come in and be a bigot, then we don't want you here. We're gonna kick you out, and you can go somewhere else. Work on yourself. Don't come to our subreddit.
Right. No, I mean, I think that's that. I mean, you're very honest about that. I mean, my assumption is a community like Reddit would be predominantly white, but I think it's
Mhm.
more so about educating about space, what you guys are doing, getting the messages out in order to bring more diversity to the platform. I think that's cool. What just about like the Reddit in general? I mean, Reddit's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But how has like have you seen more people use Reddit over the past few years? Like how is just the user base of Reddit in general? How have you seen that over the past 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, so I've been on Reddit since 2010, which I think was around. I think the subreddit or the red or the website started in like 2005, 2006. So I joined on relatively early on within Reddit's like life. I mean, since then, like the growth has been like humongous. Just seeing like obviously there's certain occasionally they'll pop up in stories, but even before those stories, like there's still like a ton of people on there. I think I don't know the official stats because I'm only a moderator. I don't work for Reddit officially. Like I would say, well, I mean, we probably get close. I would say a decent ballpark in like the heavy like hundreds of millions of views and maybe even like a billion views. Honestly, like I think like that's a decent ballpark anywhere of like the high hundred millions of people that are on that website, or at least visit that website, every month. Because I mean, in general, what Reddit is, I have a lot of criticisms I have of the Reddit platform and of like the administration and just general the corporate Reddit team. But I can't also have to be like, hey, this is a really awesome community where like, hey, if you want to talk about hip hop, hey, there's a hip hop head subreddit. You want to talk about indie music, obviously IndieHeads. You want to talk about mainstream pop, there's pop heads. But even beyond music, it's like, hey, do you want to talk about the MCU? Hey, there's r/Marvel Studios. You can talk about all the new MCU shows and movies and comics there. Like, or hey, like, do you want to there is and obviously like all the crypto stuff and all the Wall Street bet stuff of just like there's essentially like if you can think of like a fan base or community, it's probably on Reddit somewhere. Sometimes it's under a weird name, mind you, but like there's always something there. It's a website that like there is something for everybody, and it is pretty much like the last forum on the internet because if you grew up on the internet in the like early mid 2000s, even late 2000s, there were so many forums for so many different things, and like
Mhm.
for better or worse, like, all these big websites have popped up and kind of have like taken traffic from those places. And I do kind of like that Reddit is sort of like this last bastion for forums because having grown up on like rap forums and whatnot, there's some really bad stuff there. And I think Reddit has done in recent years a good job of kind of filtering out some of the really bad things, like the worst elements of those forums. But it also is sort of one of the last places where it does kind of feel like the Wild West of the internet, where it's just like anything can happen here. Like there are no rules, and people are able to discover some really awesome and amazing stuff. As for better or worse, there's a lot of crazy stuff that gets posted on the subreddit or on Reddit in general.
Yeah, I remember because we started our label in 2008, and we got a decent amount of traffic from different forums because we used to go into forums and post the music where we thought it made sense. I used to work with an artist named Hobson, and he would be in a lot of forums and going back and forth with people, being a part of these communities. I think that's where we got a decent amount of traction in 2008, 2009, different forums online.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it definitely is, but like we said before, you have to do it the right way. You have to really, become a part of the community and join in on the conversations, give your opinions and things like that. Before you start just posting your music. On Reddit, it's just text, right? Like it just go back. There's no audio component. There's no video component. Is there?
There actually is a video component. So like in recent years, Reddit has really like sort of upgraded its capabilities. So originally it was really just like links and text posts. That was about it. but they've expanded like more image post and like video post. As like one of my favorite subreddits is the wrestling subreddit, which is squared r/squared circle, and like videos get posted there all the time of like, like highlights from like AEW and WB and whatnot. So like they really have expanded their outreach because, and also like gaming subreddits. That's originally why I joined Reddit, was because I was a big gamer and there's a ton of gaming subreddits on there that I wanted to join to be a part of, and those have only expanded since then. Of like, you want to see someone do some really crazy shit in like GTA 5 or like any new video game. Hey, you can probably find it on Reddit somewhere.
So what would you for the artists that listen, they're probably still like, hey, I want to promote my music. Where do you that's ultimately what it's about. I mean, even if but I think artists need and producers need to understand that, like, building these connections, sometimes it takes time to really promote your music the right way. Like, because I'll get a million like DMs of just those, hey, they're not even personalized. I didn't even say my name. You can tell it's a copy paste job. And, you can do that all week, and you do that, it's going to be unsuccessful. I can write 5 messages, personalize them, and really kind of tell that person why my music fits, how I found them, just create more of a connection, and I'll have more success writing 5 messages versus copy and pasting 1,000 of them. So I think the message I'm trying to say is everybody just slow down, kind of figure out where you need to be, and, do so authentically. Do you have any other just kind of advice for approaching Reddit communities for artists and producers?
Mm-hmm. So I would say the first thing is that Reddit is not like any other social media website. Like, it's not like Twitter, it's not like Facebook, where like you're sort of free to like promote yourself and there's no real rules there. Like, Reddit is a very personal, despite its size, it is, it's full of very personal insular communities. And so if you're going to enter that, you want to be, I think it's important with Reddit is just like take your time, like it's not about, if you're going to promote yourself on Reddit, I think it's all about the long game and not the early game, because I think that's a big problem that I come across, having moderated the site or moderating my subreddit for, 4 years now, is that it's a lot of people that come in and, like, and I assume they have good intentions, they want to post their music, but sometimes it is just like, you can't just go find like, okay, here's like 24 music subreddits I found, I'm going to post my music in all of these. Like, focus in on the communities, like take your time and like really research stuff and really like figure out, okay, like, so like this subreddit, like, okay, they more post about this kind of music, or this, like, okay, this kind of music, or like this community is like this. And I think really it's playing the long game, and it's really like ingraining yourself in the communities and being like, okay, like this is the community that I want to be a part of, and ingraining yourself in there. And so when it comes time to like, hey, like I want to post my own music, you'll actually have people that are go, oh, hey, I recognize that person, and I'll check this out and give them a comment and give them some support on this. And there's definitely been artists like I won't name any names, but there's definitely artists that I've come across who have blown up in recent years that I'm like, oh yeah, I remember you on the subreddit because I removed your post a bunch of times. So it's like, and sometimes, like I said, and I think like Reddit is like, I think like, and I'm, I should be promoting the subreddit, like, hey, please come to our subreddit. It's just like, sometimes it is like, sometimes we are not the best place to promote your music, and sometimes it's a very insular community, and sometimes you're better fit for sticking with like Twitter and Facebook and other websites and whatnot. But the magic of Reddit is like, whenever it clicks for you, is like it's really special, because like right now, like I'm working for the Planetary Group, which is like a music promotions and college radio promotions company. Like, I wouldn't be there at all if not for the stuff I did on IndieHeads, like preparing me and like making me like really passionate about music and being like, I want to have a career in this industry because of like the brief entrance I had from just doing stuff on the subreddit. So like that really is the most important thing, is like focus in on the places that you think are going to support your music, because you can post, like I said, with like Reddit and Facebook, we see so much information a day, and it's so easy just to look past that, just not think about anything, be like, oh, okay, just keep scrolling. So it really is important to figure out which places that you think are not going to ignore your stuff, and places that like you feel like you can be a member of the community and like feel like you're not afraid to make comments and make posts and talk about the music that you love.
Right. So one of our members, Shane, he said, "Look at what Lil Nas did with Reddit." I don't have no idea what Lil Nas did with Reddit. Are you familiar with what Lil Nas X did with Reddit?
I'm not totally sure. I know obviously TikTok was the big thing that blew him up, but I wouldn't be surprised if he tried posting his stuff on like the hip hop heads subreddit and sort of like made like a meme or made memes and like sort of used that because obviously like Reddit, if you see something online, there's like a good half chance that someone originally posted it on Reddit and it got spread online from there. So it wouldn't surprise me per se if he was initially promoting himself on like the hip hop head subreddit. And it is kind of funny how that works out sometimes with like promoting yourself on all these things and obviously like a year later, either because of the hip hop heads promotion or just like that being like a part of the snowball, becomes the number one, the biggest song of all time and one of the biggest artists on the face of the planet.
Right. Is there? I know that IndieHeads isn't focused on producers, but are you familiar with? But I would imagine there is a producer community on Reddit. Are you?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because BeatStars obviously is a platform where producers sell beats. What do you know what it's called? Can I direct them to it?
I would say I know there is for like hip hop producers and just like making hip hop. I know there's the r/making hip hop subreddit that's like really good about feedback. Like that's a really active community where like people are constantly giving feedback to each other, like either posting their stuff and then giving feedback to others. I know there's other ones like I think We Are the Music Makers, Indie Music Feedback. There's a lot of places where like our subreddit's more focused on fans and more focused on like um you know, we're pretty focused on the music itself and like kind of what's happening in the indie music world. But like for
Mhm.
places that are more, we're more driven for that. But there are subreddits that are more driven for like actual music creators and like people who are posting their music and want feedback on it and want to collab with others. Like we have that on the subreddit. Obviously, there's a ton of people that get a ton of feedback all the time on our subreddit. But like for ones that are more focused on that, I would say r/indie music feedback or for like specifically like hip hop beats, r/making hip hop, I believe is the name. I'm not totally certain on that, but I think that, but definitely r/indie music feedback. That's definitely like one of the more active ones out there for like a bunch of artists.
Got you. Do you guys have any and this may not be in the plans, and I'm not expecting it to be, but when you have a community like that, sometimes people have ideas to kind of take that community not necessarily take it off the platform, but add to it with something else. Like I could see like an Indie Heads music festival or something
Well,
like that,
it's
indie
funny you say
show.
that. It's funny you say
Yeah.
that because last year we actually did have an Indie Heads festival on our Instagram live,
Oh,
where
oh.
like like I was working in a retail job and I had left that job when the pandemic started because I was just like I'm just not dealing with this. Like I've got some money saved up. Like I'll ride this out, thinking it'd be over by the summer. Of course, that didn't happen. And then also like another one of our moderators, also she got let go from her job because of the pandemic, and so we both were like, okay, like we want to expand our social media outreach because we're on Twitter and Instagram at indie_heads, and we're like, okay, we want to expand our social media output a little bit, and so we're like, and I think I saw someone doing like a music festival on Instagram Live, and I'm like, we could do that, right? Like
Mm.
that wouldn't be difficult. Like we both don't have jobs right now. Like we could probably pull this off. Like we have enough connections with like music publishers and whatnot, or publicity people and whatnot to be able to pull this off. And so we put together a music festival for free online. I think
Nice.
you could probably find some stuff on YouTube, some like archive stuff from it on YouTube. But like it was a really fun, exciting like 2 days that we did the festival, and like it was like, oh wow, like we have a really big community here because I think and we did that, and I think we were hovering around 4,000, 5,000 followers on Instagram. We got I think like 6,000, 7,000 more followers just from doing the festival, just because we are very
Mhm.
selective about like who we're like wanting to book for the festival. And like, okay, like we want to have a good mixture of people that are like big on the subreddit, more people that are like kind of rising on the subreddit, and others that are like could bring us like a big social media following and a big push. Because there was one band, like I think like half the members were like big on Vine, and so us booking them, we got a ton of followers and a ton of people watching because of them. So it was like really awesome and inspiring to see.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think there's always an opportunity to do that, depending on, where guys want to take. I could definitely see like an actual live show, when all the restrictions lift. which I think is relatively soon. I think of having like a tour or something. I think that would be really cool because you guys obviously have built a community, you have a connection with the fans, and you can build other platforms in order to push and promote, artists and their music. So that's dope that you guys did that. Let's see. Impulse asks, any plans on having continued installments of that festival?
I think we really did think about doing a second one, and I had made some like more serious plans about doing that. But because we did that festival, a lot more, like surprisingly, a lot more eyes were on us for AMAs, and so we just sort of just kept booking a bunch of AMAs, and I had started working again, and Sarah had started working again, so it was like something that we like. It's something that I would like to do again at some point, but just the cards haven't lined up for such a thing because it's such a long process for setting it up, and then the actual festival itself takes time. Like because I work full time now. Like I was working part time and going to school before or while that festival was going on, or now I am. Well, so let me go back a little bit. I'm working full time now. I've been out of school for a few months, and so it's something that I would want to do again. Like because I think there is a lot of potential there. Like I think if there's any silver linings that the pandemic has had, I think it has really expanded live streaming, and like people have really put together tools that are like realizing like, hey, like there's live music is something really precious, and we don't want to lose it again after this. And so it's good to have sort of backups like that because like for example, there's a festival going on. The like Chapo Trap House subreddit is like helping put together this like festival on this new platform called Frequency, which is like a live streaming platform that's pretty similar. It's sort of a mix of like Discord and Twitch, and like stuff like that is like it's really cool to see all these new platforms that are popping up, and people like expanding on the technology because live streaming before the pandemic like obviously like was pretty well set up. Like a lot of people have been making careers off of it, but I think like it's only forced these companies to like really expand on their technology and expand on features that maybe they wouldn't think of otherwise because of how many more eyes are on it. So it's been one of the more inspiring, cool things to see.
Yeah. I mean, again, you guys are probably in a similar situation. Is that like I got a billion and one ideas for the Music Entrepreneur Club, but it's like the more time the Music Entrepreneur Club takes up, it's taking away time from like the stuff that actually pays my bills. So then it's like, okay, let's figure out how to, potentially solve both problems. Like, can we get some sponsors on board? What can we charge for? What can't we charge for? Like, yeah, I love doing this, but at the same time, the bills got to be paid. So I understand 100%. If you guys have some more questions, just put them in the comments. So whether you're on YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, Facebook, type your questions in the comments if you want to learn a little bit more about Reddit. I've been trying to catch some of your questions as they've come in. I appreciate those. I know I missed a few. So if I didn't ask Matty your question, feel free to type it again so I don't have to scroll all the way up. Let's see. Actually, let me scroll up. Let me try to find some of these because yes, there is a replay for this session. All of our sessions are always archived on the BeatStars Twitch channel. Have y'all covered, let's see. Have y'all covered good subreddits for rappers and producers and the best way to yes, we did. I think we talked about that. If you have anything else to add that you haven't added yet, Matty, feel free. But you can definitely watch the replay. We touched on that a little bit.
Just a quick recap, like r/hiphopheads, r/making hip hop, r/indie music feedback. Those are probably like my top 3 to go to for rappers and producers sort of wanting to post their stuff and getting feedback on their stuff.
Got you. Okay, I'll wait a minute for some more questions. We got a decent amount of people in here, so let me know if you have any more questions about Reddit, if you got any ideas. Hopefully listening to this discussion, you got some more ideas about how you potentially can find your community, can find your fit and approach it in a respectful way. Always remember that you got to give to the community before you ask a bunch of stuff from it. I'm glad we beat the message home once again. It's something that we have to continuously reiterate because we see a lot of people that don't get it. All right. Well, I'll wait another minute. If not, we'll wrap up today's session. Matty, anything upcoming? Any updates that you'd like to give, or just maybe just let people know where to find you if they wanted to ask you some follow-up questions, if that's okay?
Yeah. Where you can find me. So IndieHeads subreddit, reddit.com/r/IndieHeads. That's of course, we're doing still a ton of AMAs. We have a ton of really awesome AMAs coming up with a ton of great artists. So, honestly, I think like if you're for discovering new music, like if you want to, like, I think really like what the subreddit is so great at is music discovery. So if you're wanting to find some really, great new music, subreddit's awesome for that. If you want to find me, my own personal Twitter at Movian Prince, and also I host a podcast, IndieHeads podcast. We started a Patreon a few months ago, and we're pretty close to hitting our next goal. So
Nice.
that's been amazing to see. And we just started a new series talking about the discography of Death Grips, which I'm really excited to get going and get launched. And those are sort of my main plugs: IndieHeads podcast, Movian Prince on Twitter, uh, IndieHeads subreddit. Oh,
So
actually, I see a
yeah,
couple questions. So
yeah, a
actually, I
couple.
see a couple more.
Yeah, the couple came in. So Paul Neal says, I love this content. I've always been interested in Reddit, but slightly intimidated. Is there a way to increase reachability, or is that based on engaging others and adding value that can be upvoted?
So I saw another comment asking about ads. You can put ads on Reddit. I think I'm not sure on the ad rates on that, so I wouldn't be your guy to go to for that. But in terms of the intimidation, I was exactly the same way. Like I joined Reddit back in like 2010, and I didn't really post on Reddit for a very long time because I was scared to like get in these communities. But like once you actually get in there, you realize, oh, why was I scared? Like all these people are super nice and cool. And so it's kind of getting over that part initially, just figuring out like, okay, which places are the ones that are posting about music or posting about things that you're really interested in, and feeling free to add to the conversation and being like, oh, hey, like I think I have something valuable to say, or like, hey, someone's like posed this and I think I have a good response to them. Go on ahead. There's no, I mean, like I said, you are allowed to post and comment essentially whatever, as long as you're not breaking any rules, mind you. But I would say for increasing reachability, um, the thing with like Reddit and like most other kind of places that are based on like algorithms and stuff like that, sometimes it's completely random what blows up on Reddit and what doesn't blow up on Reddit. Sometimes it's just right place, right time. But really, the best way that I've seen is really just like having the right fans in the right places, and also having, because really for when it comes to the subreddit and how bands blow up on there, sometimes it really just is like the right users posting that and talking about it in like other threads and getting people excited, or sometimes it's just press from elsewhere. People read, like, one thing about our subreddit I think is great is that our subreddit users are really well read and really well informed. And so when bands and artists are being talked about elsewhere, like they're really doing their research and being like, oh hey, like they published this interview with this artist, let's see what that's all about. And so I think like with Reddit, it kind of feels like a culmination of other stuff kind of coming into like how you get, big on there. And also really is come down to just being a part of the community and like really ingraining yourself there, and really being like, if you're coming to like specifically indie heads, come to indie heads as a fan of indie music first and foremost. And if you're able to kind of reach a point where you feel like you can post your music and feel like you'll get a lot of good feedback, that's just the cherry on top. So
Right.
that's my advice
So,
for that.
so Great Brilliant says, I have Reddit with 90K karma. I don't even know what that is. Maybe that's worth talking about. From engaging in other subreddits. Not sure how to best leverage that to promote my playlist. Any ideas? What are karma?
Karma is basically Reddit's system for like how many like cumulative like upvotes you get essentially. So it's just like if you have 90,000 karma, you've gotten like a cumulative like 90,000 upvotes across the community. So that's just the basic gist of karma. But for like pruning your playlist, for one, it is finding the right subreddits. That's really the big thing. On our subreddit, we don't allow playlists to be posted directly to the subreddit. We allow them to be posted in like our daily music discussion threads, in like comments. But like sort of when it comes to like promoting playlists, it kind of same rules apply when it comes to promoting your own music. It is figuring out, okay, like kind of ingraining yourself in the community first and being like, hey, this seems like a good opportunity to post my playlist. you know don't just self promote because you can. Self promote when you feel like it is the right time and when it feels like relevant to the topic at hand, of like, hey, like, oh, someone's looking for recommendations for this kind of music, hey, I have this playlist you should check out. So that's a perfect example. But if you're just coming in and you're just promoting your stuff with no real relation to the community, feeling like you're just completely, on the outside, people are very quick to figure that out. People are very quick to sniff that out, and you'll probably get downvoted, and like people will probably report your post or report your account or something like that. So it really is important to like really hone in on that like semi-regular contributor stuff of like, hey, you know, get it's all about, you know, give, it's all about giving rather than taking, or the other way around. It's just like it's important to be a member of the community. Like it's really, really important to do that and figure out like when is the right time to strike on stuff.
Is your karma, you can see it on people's pages? Is that kind, you can see it like you can see followers on Instagram or whatever. You can see how much karma somebody has. And you can assume that they're okay. But you can't do anything with it. It just looks good that you say things that people upvote.
Yeah, pretty much. I will say karma is a really good indication, honestly, of like, so whenever we do, like, whenever I'm like doing sweeps of the subreddit and figuring out like, okay, like stuff, you know, doing the general moderation stuff, if I see an account with high karma, it's like, oh, okay, so this person's like probably like actual, like, you know, isn't just here to self promote or isn't, you know, doing this, like, okay, like they're actually a member of Reddit and they actually are a member of the community because they contribute to a bunch of other places. So
got it. Makes sense. Okay. And then Shane asks, how do you see crossover between Alexis Ohanian's role in IndieFi? I didn't even know he had a role in IndieFi. And Reddit. Do you think there will be more IndieFi, the service that like pairs artists with like managers and investors and stuff? The same is that the same IndieFi?
I have never heard of IndieFi, so I'm gonna assume as such. But I know Alexis left the Reddit board like earlier last year, and I think sort of like in the wake of like the Black Lives Matter movement and wanting them to replace him with someone like of a person of color and someone like to really like improve their sort of diversity and whatnot. And so, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's some crossover in the future. But I've never heard of IndieFi, so I can't speak to that too much.
Yeah, so actually, it's funny because we just booked the founder of IndieFi for July 12th on an MEC session. But essentially, it's a platform for artists that are seeking. They could be seeking a manager, they could be seeking funding, so an investor, and the site kind of pairs the two. You know, so I guess there's investors that are looking to put some money into artists. I don't know if they're like serious investors or just music or just like music fans that have extra money to invest. But I guess I'll learn more on July 12th. So, but I didn't know there was a connection there. Anyway, well, cool. Well, Matty, thank you, man. I appreciate you joining us today. I learned a lot about Reddit. You know, I told you before this that I'm working on a new project where I'm bringing 6 artists to LA to record a project in a week. It's a hip hop project called 1 Week Notice. You know, I'm just going to explore and see if there's an opportunity to kind of, you know, see if there's a community that makes sense for us to, you know, be a part of and share story of that project. And I don't know, but I'm just going to see if it makes sense. Well, thank you. And I know that a lot of people learned a lot from this session. Appreciate it. Can you just share your Twitter and Instagram one more time for people if they want to connect?
Yeah, so my Twitter is @MarvianPrince on Twitter, and then my Instagram is mty.mo. So those are the 2 easiest places to reach me and connect with me. I'm more active on Twitter, though, than Instagram, so I usually have a lot to say about what's going on in music and other things going on in the world.
So I think Monroe, can you see the chat?
That's right. That's correct. Yep, that is correct.
Cool. All right, man. Well, thank you once again. I appreciate it. I'm sure I'll be in touch. If you ever have any updates that you want to come back and share with the MEC community, man, we'd be happy to have you.
For sure.
Cool. All right. Thursday, you guys got another session with DJ Payne 1. And then next Monday, I don't know who. Actually, I can tell you right now who I have on. 1 second. We got a man, Call Me Ace. Call Me Ace is a rapper. The reason I'm having him on is because he holds a full-time job at Google. So it is possible to pursue music and have a full-time job. You don't have to quit your job. You don't have to quit school. You shouldn't be doing all that. You don't necessarily have to do that. So we're going to talk to him about balancing the two. So that'll be next week. But thank you guys for joining us. Matty, once again, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see y'all next Monday. Peace.